Welcome to Capital Leverage Club. In this video, I'm going to talk about steps on how to legally rob a bank. But I got to tell you, this is all for entertainment purposes only and not legal advice, not financial advice whatsoever. It's just something that is meant to educate you on how banks work, how they collect the debts that they're owed, how they lend out. But if you're actually looking to get funding for your business, we can talk about that after this video. So first of all, the credit exploit method. This is a slide that I have here in Google Sheets. First of all, the credit profile requirements. Maintain 5 to 7 open accounts. That just tells you that you want to have a variety of accounts that you show that you can actually handle different types of accounts when it comes to the mix of revolving and installment accounts. For example, a credit card with a bank that's 20K, then a auto loan that's paid off, possibly in a mortgage that you already have been paying for a while. Credit utilization below 30% is really a very important factor. If it's above 30%, you're likely not going to get much funding because you look like a risk. Ideally, it has to be below 10%. And of course, the best is just 0%. Have no debt. Utilize leverage, but don't carry debt. Add trade lines if credit history is non existent to maximize funding. So, the trade lines, there's different types of trade lines, but what it basically is an account that shows up in your credit report saying that you own this, that you have access to this. So, for example, you ask your uncle to add you to his $50,000 American Express account. Now, that card is going to show up in your credit report because he added you as an authorized user. For example, also, if there is an auto loan or a mortgage where somebody adds you, then you're going to show up as part of that account and it's going to show up on your credit report, even though you're not the one paying for it, etc. Now, there you can enter into a little bit of a legal gray area. Everybody buys it, everybody uses it, but technically, if it's not a family member or if you're not actually using that account, then it shouldn't really be in your report. But if you have no rich relatives, nobody, no handouts, then that's an option that you can use to improve your credit report. But that's a authorized user trade lines. Be very careful because there's a lot of sketchy stuff. I mean, it's a sketchy item in itself, so there's going to be a lot of sketchy people selling these things. So if you do buy or pay for any of this, make sure it's through a credit card. That way, if it's not fulfilled, then you can go through the merchant and say, "Hey, I want my money back," and you get your money back easily. Now, the funding acquisition, you want to target the right banks. For example, you want to target regional credit unions and second chance lenders who are tier 3 and tier 4 banks. What that means is they're smaller banks because if you go for the tier 1 and tier 2 like Chase and American Express, they're going to pursue legal action aggressively through their own collection departments. So instead, if you go through a smaller bank that's tier 3 and tier 4, they're going to sell that debt to a collection agency and likely lose your documents. And without your information, the collection agency cannot legally pursue the debt. So that's where it goes into legally being able to wipe out any debt off your credit report. Although, just because you wipe off debt from your credit report does not take the liability away from you on that owing or that debt that you have with that bank. But that debt would be with the collection agency, really. But yeah, that's just legal loopholes that exist, although I'm not recommending you to use them, just educating. Now, the loan and credit stack by applying for multiple cards and loans. 30K is just a bare minimum, really. You should, if you optimize, you should get at least 100,000. It does take time and things to add to your credit report because you're not going to have a perfect, strong credit report overnight. You have to actually add information, show that you use your credit and pay it off, and that's how you build a strong credit report. You can remove inquiries that are not approved. There's so many ways to do that. You can use consumer law in your favor. And liquidation process. So on the liquidation process as well, there's many gray areas, but typical way that I see people liquidate their credit is just charging themselves through their own merchant processor, which is actually illegal, but everybody does it because they just want the easy way. But the reason that that is illegal is because you can, okay, I'm not gonna explain through so much things, but there's a lot of ways to get easy free money from that, which is illegal. It's merchant fraud. Don't even try that at home either. But that's why when you open a merchant account with certain merchant processors, they really want to bet you out, see what your credit report history looks like, your relationship with other merchant processors, because otherwise you may be a risk if you're gonna go for a merchant processing account just to get like 50, 250,000 of free money. Got to be careful if you're a merchant processor taking on clients. So, but anyways, the registering a shell LLC, that's when you have a business or that you can actually charge it to. Usually you can ask your friend's business. They're the ones that have to decide how they're going to process the taxes on any income that is charged from that invoice. But yeah, the what I recommend is actually going through a third party liquidation company that can provide this process for you. It does take a fee. I mean, 3% is a fee that is just actually through the merchant processor. There's no way around that. And then they may add another fee, 2 3% above that. Um, you do want to go through somebody who's reputable because again, if they don't have a history of attending clients, then it's best to steer away. Now, the payment facade. Okay, so here is something that I've seen a lot of people do. Um, the thing is, they want to appear as they actually got these loans to use it, but they just pay one or two payments, and then they just don't pay at all. Because if they just get the loans and then they don't pay anything, then it's pretty obvious that they just got the loans to run away. But just one two payments, it kind of makes you less susceptible. um but yeah, you want to avoid automated fraud detection pretty much. Then yeah, once they after like 2 3 months of no payments, the banks usually send you to collections. And once you're in collections, that's when you can start your credit repair process. You can use a dispute with FCRA and FDCPA letters, saying that the debt buyer has to validate that debt. If they're not able to validate that debt, then yeah, that's when you can legally wipe that out of your credit report. And yeah, the last resort method would be reporting identity fraud. That's something I see a lot of people do for their credit repair. And I think it's funny though, because one, it's financial fraud, and then the identity fraud. It's legal gray areas where you really want to be careful. And everybody does it. No, nothing happens because it's just small amounts. I mean, unless you were doing this for above 250,000, that's when you get in trouble. Or if you're providing this as a service for a lot of people, I've seen people go to jail because of that. But at the end of the day, even if you don't get in trouble, the legal repercussions exist when you go to court and they bring up your files and everything. For example, what's most common is people looking to do Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and then they talk to the banks. If the bank has a large amount of debt owed to them and they provide litigation, okay, how much did you, what did you put on your application? Or why did you file this claim against us if you actually did apply for it, but you're claiming that you didn't apply for it? That's when it get tricky. So that's why I like to inform people of what they're doing and not just tell them, hey, report identity fraud and you have a clean credit. It's there's a lot of things to it when it comes to the legal matters to it. Now, the cycle renewal, let's say you already fixed your credit, deleted all the collections off your report. Now it's time to rebuild. You get new accounts, rebuild credit through usually second chance lenders, tier three, tier four banks also, because most major banks will not do business with you if you have negative items in your history. Even if you clean your credit, there's a lot of secondary information bureaus such as LexisNexis, check systems that will have these items listed where you were sent to collections or you had all these inquiries, etc. Now, another bad method, which I'm telling you, don't even try it, don't even research into what that is, but CPNs. You can obtain CPNs through the dark market and leverage various tools to bypass identity verification, forge utility bills, etc. Just don't have any of your information tied to these places to avoid jail time. And the reason that this maximizes results is because it's scalable. You can, but it cannot be excused as legal because it's just absolutely bad. Like you're actually using the social security number of other people without them knowing. Um, it's just the sad reality of America today that there's so much information getting stolen and people using it for their own benefit. And yeah, you got to be careful. That's why I do suggest, hey, I should be sponsored for this, but Identity IQ is a good one that has identity protection. For example, if you do suffer through identity theft, somebody used your information, you have insurance through that. But even if you don't have insurance, banks are really good when it comes to refunding any money that you were dealt with through that of lost through identity theft, really. But anyways, yeah, the negative impacts on the economy of these things is industry-wide tightening of credit standards, reduced capital access for legitimate businesses, increased interest rates for all borrowers, no real asset or wealth creation, causing the GDP to, well, not even be productive, perpetual restart with no long-term gains, increases a debt bubble that's about to burst globally. The U.S. only functions, the financial system with the US only functions because of the large amount of debt. That's very correlated with China as well. But I'm not going to get into macroeconomics. So, anyways, instead of that, do this. Actually register an LLC or S Corp in the state where you're going to be operating business. If you're just starting out, honestly, just get an LLC. But if you have an actual business that's making a lot of money, at least 50,000, then it may be more convenient for you to get an S corp. Although there will be more verifications and more compliance that you have to do with an S corp. But if you're actually running a business, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, after you have an LLC or a business entity, you want to get an EIN. You can do this in the irs.gov. You go to a bank and you open a business checking account that offers 0% business APR. There's Chase, there's US Bank, and many, many more. The 0% offers are great because you can start your business and not have to pay any interest for 12 to 15 months. So that really helps you when you're trying to, build up your client list, learn the skills, and establish yourself. So you got to take advantage of that for sure. Then the vendor credit establishment. This is honestly not necessary if you have good credit. But if you don't have good credit, you definitely want to start out with building net 30s with different suppliers, pay them in time, to build a positive history on the business side. And yeah, personally guarantee first if good credit allows it, because otherwise you would have to depend on your cash flow and your good business credit, which is the no personally guaranteed business credit, which is far more difficult to acquire than personally guaranteed business credit. So yeah, credit growth and diversity. Apply for APR, 0% APR business credit cards strategically. For example, you see one that that pulls Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, get those three cards instead of just three cards that are pulled from the same credit bureau, because that way you maximize the amount that you're approved for. And for the capital deployment, yeah, just make sure you know what you're doing. For example, one problem that I have with this is that oftentimes people get money and they don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's the case for most people, really. But like I remember one time I got this guy funded, and the first thing I see was he was out on a trip. So it's like you're just using this business credit for pleasure, and you're not even investing in your own business. It's like I'm no one to judge, really. I just facilitated for him. I helped him get. At the end of the day, everybody has to do their own thing, learn from their own mistakes. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. So that's that. That's but that's just business and life. Five, ongoing credit management. Yeah, just make sure you maintain a low utilization. Don't over leverage. It's just a basic business principle that most people don't learn at the beginning. And yeah, it's very important to review your business and personal credit reports. The personal credit reports can be reviewed in the three major credit bureaus, and there's different business credit bureaus for that, but a common one is Experian Business One or Dun& Bradstreet, even Moody's. But you wanted to check out what's going on in your business. And if there are errors, address them immediately. And again, the legal disclaimer, this was made for purely entertainment purposes, even though it's advertised as legal bank robbery. It's the intent is what makes it illegal, even if it cannot be proven. So if you want to obtain funding through a real strategy tailored to your profile and business to actually create value and solve real world problems, then send me a message via Instagram at Jorge Campos COC, or leave a comment down below. So yeah, let's get this funding and make things happen. Let's go.